finance institutions, the SACCOs, and the fintech. So we started a program this year with one partner, MasterCard Foundation, where we are working with these three players, microfinance institutions, fintech, and SACCOs, who already do it. And our activity is not only to continue to provide guarantee, to make them safe, but also to provide liquidity. Because this microfinance, this fintech, these SACCOs continue to borrow with banks. And when they borrow with banks, they can only lend at high interest rates. So for us, the way we wanted to tackle the high interest rate is not only to give them guarantee, but also to give them funding. So we committed 2 billion shilling for the pilot phase, which is 1 year, for June 2026 to June 2027. We will unlock 2 billion to these FMSEs to make available to them cheap funding so that they can continue to finance the invisible of the economy. And we will sit with you, Your Excellency, to make sure that the great plan that you have for MSMEs in Kenya gets to the unsafe MSMEs and don't stay statistically on the safe SMEs.
Great. My good friend from Kenya Bankers. Si umesikia hiyo maneno?
Nimesikia, President.
Sasa hawa watu ambao bado una wadoubt, nimeenda kukutafutia tena huyu jamaa. Yani so that kuna equity na nyuma ya equity kuna Africa Guarantee Fund. Tuko na KCB nyuma yake iko Africa Guarantee Fund. Tuko na CDN na wale wengine cooperative, lakini nyuma yake iko nini?
Guarantee.
Yes, so that hiyo loss yako ulikuwa unafikiri ya 23% will be covered by this fellow, so that you can give these hustlers of mine money. Itatusaidia, you know. So I want to ask you guys, if you can put that framework together. I have already instructed my team under the leadership of David Ndii and the ministry to put that together so that we can graduate. We've done a lot of work. We have a lot of data that you can use to now drive the next. And we don't mind if you see of the people we have grown. Na uone muko na watu wazuri mnaweza kuwachukua. We have no problem. At no cost. We will not, hatuwezi kuwadai. Mnachukua wale wazuri, mnatuachia wale wengine, wale ambao si wazuri sana tunawapanga. Saa ile wamekuwa wazuri, tuna hand over kwenu. Are we okay?
We are okay, Mr. President, and maybe Mr. Ondieki can explain to you how we have worked with him to support his business.
Ondieki. Sema Ondieki. Huyu Ondieki, just for the record, huyu Ondieki nimesema hapa ya kwamba tumepatia kandarasi kupitia kwa program yetu ya affordable housing. Tumepatia kandarasi wanajua kali. Wanajua kali hawajawahi kuandika check ya pesa mamilioni. Leo wanaandika. Ondiek, can you tell us how you have supplied the...
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Ondieki from 720 Holdings. At 720 Holdings, we manufacture curtain rods and accessories. So, as you've rightly said, watu wanaangalia jua kali ile, you know, it's unkempt, it's not finished to the good quality, and the biggest challenge jua kali face are two things. One is standardization, and then once unaweza standardize, now you can do mass production. That is the only way we can compete. You mentioned Germany and the rest. That is the only way we can compete. And Bwana President, in the jua kali sector, you will be surprised the amount of innovation that is there. And sometimes what is required is that little support to actually show. Because SMEs, we face three key challenges. And the first one, we are discussing it here. That is access to finance. The second one is access to markets. That is the second thing, because after you have the product, how are you going to take it to market? And then the third thing, which is most important, is now governance and structures that the SME will establish. How will the SME differentiate between this is my money and this is the business money? Because sometimes it's not growth that hinders the SME to grow. It is managing that growth that is now lacking. Just to bring this conversation home, equity, we bank with equity. And what you've mentioned is actually true. They visited even our facility. They are willing to take some of the risks that maybe you'll find other banks, but they are coming now to actually come and do this. Because in other countries, you are financed based on an idea. An idea is your check. When you come and present, that is what people are willing to take it and actually bank with you. Now, for our banks, there's still the challenge. You know, I was reading and we were seeing like, I don't know, it's $1 trillion of collateral-based financing. And to extend the conversation forward, there's something you mentioned, Bwana President, on us to focus on manufacturing. Because the jobs are going to come from manufacturing. Because if you look at the manufacturing, that is the one that has the most ripple effect along that value chain and ecosystem, if you are to look at it. So, in terms of solutions, because you've asked, what solutions do we have? And for today's agenda, we are talking of finance. Number one, Africa Guarantee Fund is here. And thank you for bringing them on board. The government, there are some initiatives, you know, sometimes the government, you've done good initiatives that we don't make so much noise on. I'll pick on two. One, there was the KIEP, Kenya Innovation Entrepreneurship Program, that was looking for SMEs. We were part of the beneficiaries. That program was spectacular in terms of the impact that it actually goes and have. That was financed by the government of Kenya through the World Bank under the Ministry of MITI. The second one was the program that the government did with the, I think it was from Treasury, and they gave finances to banks as a credit guarantee fund. Now, the first phase was done. There were a few banks. And the thing now we need, because there's a second fund. I don't know where it is. It is in Treasury somewhere there. There's the Kenya Credit Guarantee Scheme that the government is setting it up. And Bwana Raymond, you can correct me. This proposal is that 75% of the stake will be the Kenya Bankers Association. And then the 25% will be with the government. If we can expedite this, Bwana President, we won't need Africa Guarantees Fund, because we'll be monitoring this fund locally with us here. So if we can expedite that, Bwana President, and then we have a rider and say, since we know manufacturing is going to have the huge impact, can we now say that financing to this, we say either 20% of this financing must go to manufacturing? Because in order for us to do that, manufacturing is very risky. There is a lot of things that is required for manufacturing. It goes for example also. That is the first one in terms of establishing the credit guarantee. The second one is financing is not going to come from the banks only. We need to deepen the capital markets. Because currently, if you look, Tesla, they are listing there. If you look at the US, everyone goes to the capital markets. So if we don't have a pipeline for the SMEs to go and aim to list, because that's where we are going to unlock the value within, if you look at India, that's what they are doing. And if you look at the transition and the manufacturing they've had. Then the other one that we need now to actually look at is the alternative financing that are not here on the table. There are other grants that come in. And how do we ensure SMEs are actually open? Even sometimes, it's not the government to give us the money. It's just showing the SMEs, kuna hii nafasi hapa. Simkuje muangalie. That awareness only is just enough. Bwana President, ukiwapea hiyo nafasi hivyo, the awareness, just creating that awareness, the SMEs will be ready to actually take this.
Very good.
So, thank you. Let me pause there.
Thank you. Thank you. You have said three fundamental things. You have said MSMEs need market, right? Precisely what we are doing. The whole housing program is a market for our SMEs. Is that true, Bwana Ondieki? So without, having a big market, we cannot promote, we cannot stimulate the MSMEs to produce. Because if they produce and there is no market, they get stranded, right? That is why we insisted that we are ring-fencing 72 products in our housing program for MSMEs. These are products that we have said they will not be imported from anywhere. They will be manufactured in Kenya, and they will be manufactured by our MSMEs. That's correct? Yes. So we are working on the market side. That is number one. You said another thing which is fundamental. You said we must think about how do we raise resources. One pipeline is not enough. We must diversify. We must get what we can get from the banks. We must push what we can get from government. We must push what Africa Credit Fund can give us. And we must go to the market. 100%, the capital markets. And that is why I am the first president to visit the capital markets 5 times. Today, the Nairobi Securities Exchange last year became the best securities exchange in Africa, right? Because that is where the opportunity is. We have the opportunity to raise money. How did we raise money for building Talanta Center? We went to the capital markets. How did we raise money that we are using to build Bomas? We went to the capital markets. So you are very right. There are alternative sources of funds that people don't see. That is why we must deepen. In your words, we must deepen our capital markets. And finally, you have raised the point on what the banks are doing and what credit guarantee mechanism that we are building from government. It is exactly the reasoning behind the National Infrastructure Fund. The National Infrastructure Fund is actually going to be bigger than the credit guarantee you are talking about in Treasury. We are building a bigger, mechanism for de-risking investments and industrialization. And finally, you have said something that manufacturing requires a lot of support. What have we done to make manufacturing feasible? We have built county aggregation industrial parks. Here in Nairobi, Sakaja will tell you that the one for Sakaja is not going to be producing vegetables. It is actually going to, what is it going to be doing, Sakaja? Woodwork, metal work, I don't know what is going to happen in that county aggregation industrial park. And we have provided, for your information, money in this budget, 3 billion shillings, to equip those county aggregation industrial parks so that if there is an MSME that does not have the money to buy a certain equipment, that equipment is already there. They can use it, pay a small fee, and continue their business until they are able to buy their own. So this is the ecosystem that we are building on Dieki to support manufacturing and to make sure that we de-risk the whole of that space. However, I want to ask our friends from ILO, you have participated with us in this space. What additionally can you do in the discussion that we are having?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to reflect on 2 main items, and one of them has slightly been alluded to by Ondieki, bundling capacity with finance, because these unsafe and ready SMEs, when you look at them, some of the elements are very basic bookkeeping. If you cannot show, what you sold, what you buy, that is so basic for the bank. And so this calling on the banks to also truly integrate, this capacity into their lending relationships, because this is ultimately what credit officers look like. And then secondly is the place of formalization. Because as you rightly say, Mr. President, we need more jobs, but we also need those jobs to be quality, because we need to increase the money that is going into people's pockets so that they are able to buy, because then that spending power increases. People can be able to seek more and more services. And so how is it that we also use the access to capital, the building of SMEs into formalization, bringing people into social protection, that the people that are participating, growing their businesses are able to contribute to maisha ya uzeeni, the NSSF, whether it's through Haba Haba, and they're also able to really contribute towards the social health insurance or the authority. So those would be my two key takeaways that I would speak to. Thank you.
Very good. Precisely, capacity building. Ondieki has told us part of the challenge MSMEs face is their capacity to do the business. And therefore, there is need for a lot of capacity building. It is the reason why, for example, when we gave out money for Nyota, we had training before the money was given out. We took 4 days of training. We also gave them half the money just to see what is their experience with this money. We've had to go back, retrain some of them, recapacitate some of them. We've taken a bit of time, but now many of them are ready for the next disbursement, which is going to happen possibly in the next week or two. So that we can combine what she's saying, build the capacity of these business people to understand their business, basic bookkeeping, and many of the other things. And I want to ask our friends in the bank to support us in that space. I don't know what UNDP and your organization is doing in that space.
Excellency, I think you've said it all. Kenya has ambition. The Hustler Fund has demonstrated it. It has talent, it has innovation, it has capacity, and it has commitment. When these formulas exist, the world gives us best practice examples of what works. I think the description of the president has proven results that you can tap. So we don't even have to improvise. You're completely right in saying that we need to move from a loan based on collateral to a loan based on data. India has proven to us that it made millions and millions of loans based on data, and they did not have yet instruments like M-Pesa, which allows banks to actually look at funding flows and guarantee a little bit their loans. We think also we can help do better in mobilizing resources for de-risking. We can come together with partners and use public capital to increase the amount of assets you have for de-risking. And I fully agree, there has to be a commitment to the success of the entrepreneur, which means a continued accompaniment in terms of training, in terms of value add, in terms of access to market. And AI, by the way, will be critical in improving a lot of these things. And the last point, Excellency, the success of the Hustler program is highly dependent, and this is proven in other countries, on being able to continue and expand the loan and giving them more access to credit. Or else data has proven us that after 9 years, the advantage actually is lost. The vision is correct, the environment is correct, the support is correct. All we have to do is get it done.
Very good. I think we conclude this conversation in this manner, that we understand where we are. We need to scale up. I think that is really the bottom line to this. We've done the base. We've had a solid database. Technology has been immensely useful. I mean, if we were to do this without technology, it would have been an impossible exercise. All the funding that is going on now on Hustler Fund is on technology. There is no face-to-face interaction, and I think the banks are also coming on board, and we are all moving in that general direction. We agree that we need to build the capacity of the borrowers so that they understand this more. The bank's concerns about non-performing loans, we find a way of de-risking so that we can get more finances into the equation. And the banks that are already doing, I think what AGF is saying, much as you have provided 320 billion, you have given it to the safe SMEs. There are a category there of unsafe people you don't want to touch. Yeah, so we want to go for those ones, and that's why we have brought Africa Guarantee Fund to help us, carry the ones that are considered unsafe, make them safe, and then we continue creating the pipeline. What I promise is that I will continue to build the base to make sure that those who nobody wants to deal with, I will continue dealing with them and socializing them and making sure that we organize them until they become good. We hand over to you and then you continue with them. So nataka niseme asanteni sana kwa kutusikiza. Nafikiri tumekubaliana, sorry, you don't understand Kiswahili. We have agreed that the framework is being worked on. We are giving ourselves a month between our banks, Africa Guarantee Fund, and all the other players. KDC is going to provide the resources so that we can provide more resources for the people in the MSME sector, especially those graduating from Hustler Fund into Bridge, and now we want to see how the banks can take them up and fund them. Asanteni sana and God bless you. Thank you.
All right, Your Excellency, we only have one more thing to do, so we'll request that you remain on stage with the panelists to flank His Excellency. And what we have here, Your Excellency, is the launch of the revised MSME policy 2026, which will create a conducive environment for small businesses, just as discussed right here. So at the press of the bazaar, we'll have a short video that is going to play, which will be giving us a guideline of what that new policy is going to entail and what it's going to have. So let's have the video queued and ready. As soon as we are ready, we shall have that done. And this is going to be empowering enterprise and driving growth. And the sector overview is going to be featured in this new policy, where building Kenya's MSME future, where we have 7.4 million MSMEs in Kenya. Did you know that? We actually have 7.4 million MSMEs in Kenya, employing 14.9 million Kenyans and contributing 40% to the GDP. That gives us 720,900 new jobs. So Your Excellency, in 3, 2, 1, tupige makofi tafadhali as we have the video playing. And as mentioned, that is the revised MSME policy 2026, and His Excellency has launched it now. So it's officially launched. This is empowering and driving growth and bringing a new policy to the sector. And with that, we have now come to the end of our session. I request sote tusimame. We'll leave His Excellency, he'll distribute some of the booklets to the minister and also to Kenya. Let's have more copies so that everybody can have a copy, and if we can also move the table. So that we can have a photo opportunity. Kindly display the book once you have it on the front. Mheshimiwa Oluoch apewe moja. Hustlers, wapi makofi ya new policy ambaye sasa itawezesha kila mmoja hustler aweze kupata riba na pia loan vizuri kutoka bankers. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We'll leave His Excellency on stage. The rest of us, kindly let's exit as we are going to finish with the national anthem. So the rest of us will exit stage. Kama kunaye ambaye amevaa kofia isiyo official, tafadhali tutoe kofia ili tumalizie kwa wimbo wa taifa. Wimbo wa taifa.